Welcome to the Purposeful CEO podcast, the space for passionate, driven leaders who aren't just here to build a business, but to lead a movement. If you're here to make a real impact, to lead with purpose and create a legacy that lasts, then you are in the right place. I'm Emma Campbell, leadership coach, mindset mentor, purpose activator, and mama to two cheeky little munchkins. And for the past 15 years, I've helped small business CEOs scale their team without breaking their culture and unlock their team's full potential. And my mission has always been simple: to help those doing good in the world to do even more good and inspire belief in what's possible for you, because it's all so possible. Let each episode be your reminder to pause from the hustle and come back to you, your why, your purpose, your reason for why you started, to trust that inner knowing and to lead from that place, because when you do, everyone wins. Let's dive in. Oh, hello. So lovely to be here talking about one of my new all-time favorite topics ever, I reckon. I mean, look, they do shift and change ever so slightly. But this is definitely one that I feel like I have just absolutely adored, and I know can be the make or break for your business, particularly for your team culture. And if you feel like there's just been, like, you feel like you're doing all the right things, you've like up leveled your processes, you're training your leaders, you're investing in your team training, you're trying to get all of your platforms and systems up to scratch, you're looking at your numbers and you're like, why is it, I don't know, like, why is it just not all gelling? Why is the team still kind of holding back? Why are we still losing people? Like, what is that thing that is lacking here that's stopping us from becoming the high performing, thriving, cohesive team that we know that we can be and that we should be? Well, I would be quite safe in assuming that psychological safety, the topic that we're talking about today, is probably a giant contributor to this one. And let me explain why. So I just ran a workshop with an incredible team last week. There was about 15 to 20 of them in the room. The entire organization was there. I've been working with this client for probably three or 4 years now, and we've been tracking their team engagement results regularly, at least 2 or 3 times a year over that time. And this is like an incredibly high-performing organization. They have won loads of awards. They are killing it in terms of revenue and growth. They've got, long wait lists for people to come and see them. And there's this one little piece that just keeps showing up in their team engagement and culture diagnostic, and that is this whole piece around psychological safety. And I think it's a really common one because psychological safety it's quite a complex one, but also quite simple in that it speaks to the psychology, as the name might suggest. It speaks to the psychology around our team, around our employees, around the humans within our organization, and how psychologically safe they feel in the culture and an environment that they work in. And it basically, if I was to sum up the entire 3-hour workshop that we ran last week, which is all on this topic around psychological safety driving the highest performance and potential of your team and organization, the way that I would sum it up is that happy humans or safe humans equals a happy business, or human flourishing and human safety, knowing that human safety is a precursor for human flourishing, that human flourishing as your strategic advantage in your business. And let me put that another way. When your team feels psychologically safe, when their nervous systems feel centered and regulated, when their brains feel safe and secure to be themselves, it's only then that they can bring their highest potential that they personally have to offer to the workplace. And as you may have assumed here, why this is because of brain science. And I'm going to explain more on what that means. First, let me explain what we're going to cover today. We're going to jump into what psychological safety actually means, why it's important. I'm going to show you and share with you some signs on whether your team has it or doesn't have it, and also how to measure it, how to get a sense of what the level of psychological safety within your team might be, and I guess how to get started if you feel like it might be an opportunity for you to shift in order to see that next level of results really start to take part for your business. So, first of all, let's give it a definition. So, what is psychological safety? So, I've already kind of given you some little hints there that obviously, hence the name of psychology. It does have to do with the psychology of our team members. And how it is defined technically is a shared belief held by the members of a team that it's okay / safe to take risks, that it's okay and safe to express your ideas and your concerns, to speak up with questions or challenges or differing opinions, and to admit mistakes. And to be able to do all of these things without fear of negative consequences. And those negative consequences can sometimes vary for the individual, but they could look like fear of being judged, fear of being put down, fear of being criticized, fear of maybe even losing an opportunity to a promotion, fear of being left out of opportunities. But basically it's this belief that it's safe to speak up, to be your real and true self, to challenge opinions, to kind of show up in your authentic true self without fear that that true self will be condemned in any way. As Edmondson, which is a researcher around psychological safety, puts it, it's felt permission for radical candor. It's felt permission for radical candor, candor being honesty, complete honesty. And I'm going to explain a little bit more about how that can show up and what it actually looks like what a psychologically safe team presents as, and the opposite of that. So what you might see with a team that is not psychologically safe. But first, I want to share why this is so important, because I think it's pretty common for a lot of us, and I will even put my hand up and put myself in this category of hearing something like psychological safety and kind of thinking oh, that's a lovely little soft term or idea. Doesn't that sound nice? But almost kind of switching off because it doesn't sound like it's super important. It doesn't, have high performance or results or ROI or, I don't know, some sort of impact component to it. And so that's why I want to connect the dots for you on why psychological safety is actually the number one driver of team success, why it is everything when it comes to the health and the success and the flourishing of your business. So there was this study that was actually done by Google, research it on, like, have a little look on Google for it. Google. Google did a study called Project Aristotle, to find out what are the like the key qualities or the key factors that create a high performing successful team. They did this study over 2 years. There was 1,800 teams involved in it and 30,000 employees. So really, really decent, comprehensive, longitudinal study. And they studied all of these different factors, like, was it the team members on the team? Was it the processes that they had? Was it the size of the team? They looked at all of these different factors that they thought might predict employee and team success. And can you guess what they found as the number one highest performing, like number one factor driving successful teams across all of the different factors that they studied? Yes, you are right. In case you're driving in your car and you just said it out loud, you're like, psychological safety. Yes, you are right. It is psychological safety. So they found that when teams feel psychologically safe, it drives higher employee engagement. So you have more committed, more loyal, more like bought in employees. It also drives 27% higher employee retention. So people like stick around for longer and they feel more loyal towards an organization. It drives more continuous learning and improvement because the team, like when you feel psychologically safe to make a mistake, the team members are actually more willing to be real about the mistakes that they do make, and they're more willing to learn from them. So they have that like real growth mindset ethos. And then they're just more innovative. So when people feel safe to take risks, they're more able to actually do things differently, think outside of the box, like challenge the status quo and really take those creative, leaps and bounds out of what's been done before. So it has like a really high correlate towards actually innovating as an organization. And I don't know about you, but tell me if, not that I can hear you, but I can intuitively hear you through the radio waves. Tell me if your brain is kind of asking, like, why? Like, why is it when we're feeling psychologically safe, why does that have such a giant impact on performance, engagement, retention, success, learning and improvement, innovation? Like what is the connector there? And I want to connect those dots for you because it is simply psychology and brain science. So if there's one thing that I hope that you take from this podcast, it is this: a safe brain is a high performing brain. A safe brain is a high performing brain. Because when a brain feels safe, all parts of it are integrated. They're all speaking to each other. They're all switched on. They're able to communicate with each other. We're able to access all different parts of our brain: our verbal parts, our emotional parts, our strategic parts, our higher logical reasoning and decision-making parts, our intuitive parts, like all of those different sections. They're all switched on. They're all having a chat and they're all having a party. They are like here to serve and support you in whatever you need when you feel safe. When you feel unsafe, so when you feel like there's some sort of threat, perceived or real in the room, when you feel like your performance is being judged or under attack, when you feel triggered, when you feel like you're in some sort of like survival mode, however that presents for you, and we all have our own unique triggers. When we're, for an Enneagram 3, what might make an Enneagram 3 feel unsafe is if they feel like they're being judged or if they feel like they might be about to fail. So we all have our unique triggers, right? When we feel unsafe, the higher reasoning cortex which is like the higher level reasoning part of the brain that includes the frontal lobe. Like what I'll label, this is a terrible, terrible label, but I'm just going to make it super, super simple to make it really, really easily understandable. But let's call it like the real smart parts of the brain, or the long-term smart parts of the brain. They actually get hijacked by the amygdala, by the emotional centers of the brain when we feel unsafe. And so those smarter parts of the brain, they actually get switched off. There's a really great hand model by Daniel Siegerman. I feel like I've messed up his name, but I'll put the link in the show notes below. But like a famous psychologist who has the hand model, and he talks about how we can flip the lid. And he has like a great little diagram, like right now, if you could see me, I'm like holding my fist open, my fist closed. And when our brain is talking, when all the different parts of our brain are talking to each other, our brain is like a closed fist where like the thumb is squished underneath all of the fingers, and that's our amygdala. So that's kind of like the emotional part of our brain that switches into fight or flight if we feel activated or triggered. And if we feel activated or triggered, and I'm like lifting my top 4 fingers up, we flip our lids. So the higher level reasoning cortex actually goes offline. It gets hijacked, and we're literally not actually able to access those higher level parts of our brain. So we're operating in fight or flight mode with our amygdala, or that emotional brain starts to run the show. And so we are literally not able to think creatively or big picture or solve some of those big complex higher level reasoning problems, because the parts of our brain that are responsible for that kind of thinking are actually switched off. Does that make sense? So when we feel unsafe, we can't actually access all the parts of our brains that we need to perform at our highest level. So the converse of that, a safe environment equals a safe brain. And a safe brain is an effective, high-performing, high-potential brain. And we're actually going to cover more of this, like the psychology behind this, in an upcoming free masterclass that I'm running later this month. So I'll put the link in the show notes below. But it's basically called 3 Ways to Boost Team Morale Without Pay Rises or Incentives. And so it speaks to like the different components of how we can tap into the natural motivators and psychology within the humans within our business, without having to like throw money at the problem, without having to throw out all these pay rises and then not even see performance improve, or like create an elaborate complex bonus or incentive scheme that doesn't actually shift behavior or engagement. I'm actually going to share with you like the secrets that all of my clients now know, and which I think everyone in the whole wide world needs to know, about how when we actually tap into the natural motivators, like the psychology-based motivators to building a thriving high performance culture, that's when we actually see like long-term sustainable shifts for the positive, that helps us grow a really thriving, engaged team culture that doesn't cost you lots of money to try and fix and then not actually get results from. So these are like the 3 biggest secrets to building a highly engaged, flourishing team culture. So that's a masterclass that's coming up later this month. So I've got the link in the show notes below. So make sure you save your seat if you want to come along to that one. Because what the research does show, that it's when it comes down to what actually works in driving, like having a happy, engaged team, or even a high-performing team, that it's not about just having more confident employees, that it's actually like a lot less about the person, and it's more about the environment that the person is in. And I love the analogy of thinking about like, that whole like, if you like God, get your words together, Emma. If you plant a flower and the flower is not growing, you don't like get annoyed at the flower for not growing, right? You improve the environment in which that flower is growing. So, you change the soil, you make sure it's got enough sun, it's got enough water, right? It's less about the flower and it's more about the environment. And the exact same thing goes for team culture. It's the research shows that it's less about the people in the culture and it's more about the environment that they're in. So how this relates to psychological safety is that you can have the same person, put them in two different environments, one of them being a safe environment that nourishes their highest self and highest potential, and that employee will flourish. You put them in an unsafe environment that's built on perfectionism, fear, criticism, avoidance of mistakes, and you will find that that same person, their potential will be so limited. They will play small. They'll be focused on how they can protect themselves, how they can avoid criticism, rather than focused on how can I actually reach my potential. And so it makes you wonder, like looking around at the team members that you have right now, like what potential you could possibly be tapping into within your current team if they all felt completely psychologically safe. Like what potential is currently laying dormant within them that could be unlocked on the basis of them being in an environment that truly nourishes their potential. And from a personal perspective, I can definitely speak to the truth of this for myself. Like reflecting on, like I've worked in quite a few different environments, and there's like probably two that I would look at as the most different, diverse environments I've ever worked in. So one being, this was very early on in my career, an environment that was built on perfectionism, that was built on fear, a lot of ego, a lot of like avoidance of criticism. And there was a real focus on not making mistakes. Like you needed to be perfect, you needed to be super high performing. Emotions were not allowed, vulnerability was not allowed. It was like, probably not, like, let's just call it a not very safe environment. And then another organization that I was working in, which was the complete opposite. It was an environment built on support, on emotional safety, on being allowed to make mistakes, being allowed to be human. It was built on teamwork, understanding, and it was a complete safe environment. In the former, the one that was built on perfectionism, fear, and avoidance of mistakes, my potential was so, so limited because and this is just me and how it showed up for me, but I spent, I can't even really put an exact number on it, but I would like quite easily estimate that I reckon I spent like a good 50% of my day focused on whether I had made a mistake. I was like in complete fear. So I would recheck emails, I would reread them sometimes for hours because I was paranoid of getting in trouble. I was paranoid of making a mistake. And so I would add a comma here, rethink whether I'd picked the perfect word or not. And I would have wasted so much time and productivity focused on avoiding criticism and trying to fit this mold of perfection, which is impossible, right? Whereas the other environment that I was in, that I felt completely safe, it was an environment where I just noticed myself, like looking back on it today, that I completely stepped into my potential. I was the most productive and creative and confident that I've ever been in my life. And I learnt more than I ever have. And I stepped into these like giant new growth and learning opportunities in such a short space of time and really, really learnt and flourished in all of the ways. Same human, two different environments, two different humans showed up in those two different environments. Safe environment, safe brain, high performance. Unsafe environment, unsafe brain, limited performance. Make sense? So let's quickly jump into a couple of signs of whether your team is psychologically safe, or whether you are noticing, or like, let's just say 5 signs of how psychological safety actually shows up in your team. So a safe team looks like, this is number 1, if you make a mistake, it's not held against you, and people are very comfortable owning up to their mistakes. In a really, really safe environment, mistakes are even celebrated. Sign number 2, people are able to bring up problems and tough issues or hot button topics during meetings without fear of negative circumstances. Sign number 3, it's safe to take a risk. It's safe to do something different. It's safe to jump out of that, that status quo, or jump outside the box and do something different. Sign number 4, people are super comfortable putting their hand up and asking for help and saying they don't have the answer. Sign number 5, individual and diverse skills, strengths, and talents are known, valued, and celebrated. So it's not just about, having the exact same person in the team with the exact same strengths. It's like lots and lots of diverse people, diverse skill sets, and all of those individual skill sets really being celebrated. How low psychological safety might show up, here's 5 signs. So low psychological safety, employees don't ask many questions during meetings. It's mainly the managers that are leading those discussions. Employees don't feel comfortable owning up to their mistakes, and there's quite a bit of like a blame game going on. Like, who did this? Who made this mistake? Like when something goes wrong. Sign number 3 is the team avoids difficult conversations and hot button topics. There's kind of like a bit of an avoidance culture, and there's hardly ever disagreements or differing points of view raised during meetings. Sign number 4 is feedback is not frequently given, nor is it requested. Sign number 5, employees don't ask one another for help when they need it. They just kind of put their head down, bum up, and try and like push through. So you might be already getting a little bit of a sense of where you sit. There's a good chance that you're somewhere in the middle, knowing the bell curve. And the research shows that there's 4 different stages or evolutions of psychological safety based on how kind of trusting your team is with each other. And there's also like a direct correlation between, as you increase psychological safety, that it has a giant impact on your team's performance. So 40% less mistakes start to occur. Innovation rises by 40%. You have a more engaged team, and retention, so employee retention, increases by almost 30% as well. So there's such a giant ROI on investing in a team feeling safe to be themselves and bring their full selves to work. So the question is, how do you actually measure psychological safety? And I'm going to show you how to measure it in more detail in that upcoming free masterclass that I'll be running really soon, that one that's called 3 Ways to Boost Team Morale without pay rises or incentives. So make sure you save your seat in the show notes below. Otherwise, if you actually just want to like dive straight in and get a bit of a feel for, hang on, like, where is my team's current level of psychological safety, knowing how giant an impact it has on the overall health and success of your organization, you can actually apply now for your chance to receive your first team culture diagnostic as completely free and complimentary. So these are valued at over $3,000 usually, but we're giving you the opportunity to receive your first one completely free as a complimentary gift to be able to get a sense of your overall team culture, engagement, psychological safety, and all of those key metrics. You get so much incredible value and insights from these. Usually $3,000, you're getting your first one completely for free. And just to get a bit of a taster for the process. And regardless, you walk away with such incredible insight into like what's going well with your team, what's not going so well, where you can focus so that you're really making, strategic decisions about how to, really up level your team culture. So I'm going to drop the link to apply for that free team culture diagnostic in the show notes of this podcast below. And there's a very short application form to see if your business qualifies. Spots are limited. You'll be notified either way after we receive your submission. Just check out the link in the show notes for that one, as well as the link to that free masterclass will be in the show notes below, because I really, truly know and believe that this is a topic that can shift everything, not only for the results of your business, like being able to see a more higher engaged, higher performing, innovative, higher retention team, but also like just from a day-to-day experience, you will notice the shift of a more trusting, psychologically safe team. Like you can feel it in the air. They trust each other more. They work together better. There's just like this feeling of like comfort, safety, and ease. And it just makes the whole working experience so much more enjoyable. So check out those links. I hope to hear from you. We'll let you know either way about the application for your submission. And I really hope that you enjoyed today's topic. Talk to you soon. Thank you so much for listening. If you got value from this episode, I've got a little request for you. Either share it with a fellow leader who you know needs this in their life, or leave a super quick review. It only takes a few seconds, yet it helps us so much in expanding our reach and our impact and bringing on even bigger names onto the potty to then inspire your growth and your journey. I love and appreciate you so much. Thank you in advance, and I can't wait to see you next time.